Good morning. Welcome back to Planet Doug. And as is often the case, my day is beginning with going down the stairs of my hotel and then clicking the button to release the magnet so that I can go outside. Welcome to Chow Kit in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And there's a lot going on in my life and on my mind. I have a lot of things to do and a lot of things to talk about. So today's video is going to be a bit of a jumble of events and thoughts and all kinds of different things. We'll see how it all comes together. My last video was a bit of a story time video. I went out into Kuala Lumpur to get passport photos taken. And while I was doing that, I was just telling the story about all of my research into how one renews a Canadian passport. And I was, all the stories about my struggles with the Canadian government website and all the mistakes I made, all the things that I figured out, things I thought I needed to do or that I should do. And it turns out I was wrong about everything. And I'll talk about that a little bit here. And I've got some technology stuff going on, as always. I'm shooting this video in 4:3 aspect ratio, which means I can use a 2.7K resolution at 50 frames per second. A whole bunch of like YouTube techno babble there. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. So last you heard from me, I was in the throes of applying to renew my Canadian passport, and I went out trying to get passport photos taken. And I eventually did get the pictures. I told that whole story. The whole thing was a disaster from beginning to end, because at that time I thought I was under a lot of time pressure, and I had to get it done now. So even though I hadn't slept for what felt like forever, and I was exhausted and looked terrible, and I was so stressed out, I still got the photos taken, and they look absolutely horrible. What I should have done was waited until a day like today, because last night I slept beautifully. Comfortable hotel room, air conditioned, nice bed, perfectly quiet. I still use earplugs even in a quiet room. But because all the passport stress was over, I finally managed to turn off my brain and go to sleep. So I feel great today. I hope I look better today. And this is when I should have gotten my passport photos taken, right? So I'm here in the Chow Kit monorail station, and I'm leaving Chow Kit area using a different route, by the way. I'm fascinated by public transportation, so I talk about that all the time. She's very, very loud. Wow, that was a loud advertisement. But here on the monorail, I could head that direction, off in that direction, and head towards Bukit Bintang, KL Central. It's all in that direction. But that's a very long journey. But I can also go in this direction, one stop, and after one stop I end up at Titiwangsa station, and at Titiwangsa I can transfer to the MRT Kajang line or the Ampang Petaling Jaya LRT line. So it's like a major hub one stop away. So that's what I'm doing today to leave from here, just going up to Titiwangsa, transfer to Ampang Jaya line or the Ampang Petaling Jaya line, and then head down. So that's what I'm going to try out this time. Should work out fairly well. Power of touch and go. And I believe I want platform 1, to Titiwangsa. I probably just missed the train. One issue with the monorail is that the trains are not that frequent. I think on the sign they say they come every 10 minutes, and that feels like there it is, every 10 minutes. It could be true. Feels a little bit optimistic, because I definitely wait up here longer than 10 minutes sometimes. But I do love the monorail. So, passport story. I did finally get my passport photos done, and I think they were done according to the Canadian government specifications. You know, fingers crossed. I had printed out my application form. I filled it out online as a PDF, but then I printed it out, and then I could use a pen to sign it and date it and do all those sorts of things. And then I had an appointment at the Canadian High Commission at 11:30 in the morning. And then I made an unusual mistake. I don't know what's wrong with me. I blame everything on YouTube and on the GoPro, because as soon as I start recording video and editing video, I lose most of my brain power and I just do the dumbest things. So I knew my appointment was at 11:30. I knew this for days, and yet at 10:30 in the morning, I was still in my hotel room, sitting on the bed on my laptop, like replying to YouTube comments. And it hit me all of a sudden. It's like, oh crap, it's 10:30. I don't even know where I'm going or how I'm going to get there. And it could be rush hour, it could be crazy traffic out there. It could be, anyway, normally in my normal life, if I have an appointment at 11:30 for something as important as renewing a passport, I'm there at 10:30. Like, I'm leaving at 9:30, getting there at 10:30, and then I'm waiting an hour. I'm an hour early for my appointment. I'm that kind of person. And this time, for some reason, after all this work, after all this stress, after everything I've been going through, I practically missed my appointment because I stepped outside. I got dressed really, really quickly. I grabbed everything I needed really, really quickly, headed outside, and it was raining. So that slows everything down. And I was standing out here on the street outside my hotel, somewhere in this direction. I'm all disoriented again. I don't really know where I am. Here comes a monorail train. It's not mine, though. I guess, yeah, I'm totally disoriented. I guess I'm heading in that direction. For some reason, my internal compass is all screwed up. I thought I was going in that direction, but I'm not. Unless I'm on the wrong platform. But I think I'm okay. But anyway, I stepped outside, discovered it was raining, and I discovered I didn't know what to do. Oh, it was like, how do I get to the Canadian High Commission using public transportation? I hadn't done the research in advance. So I was standing there going, I got out my phone, I'm trying to look on Google Maps, and okay, if I get on the monorail, I go here, I transfer there, and the clock was ticking, and I thought, well, this is the time I need to hop in a Grab. I don't like using Grab generally. I should use Grab more often. It's not that expensive, and it's really kind of convenient. So I thought, okay, I better not risk this, because if I get into the monorail and there's a 20-minute delay, and I didn't need that stress, so I summoned a Grab, and the Grab was a little bit slow getting here. It had to do all these one-way street routes to get there, and I was tracking it on my phone, and I could see every time it got to a red light, and it just sat there and sat there and sat there on the map. And I was like, come on, come on, come on, come on. You know, and then it would start moving. I was like, oh, thank goodness. And you get to the next corner and just sit, and I'm pulling out my hair, I'm going crazy. And I was really worried that the driver would decide that, this is too much hassle, and they were going to cancel me. And I thought, oh, now this guy, I wait 15 minutes for him, and then he cancels, then I'm really going to be in trouble. Such a dummy for not leaving earlier. I couldn't believe I'd made that rookie mistake. But the Grab driver eventually showed up. He wasn't the friendliest guy. He wasn't a chatterbox. I tried him out with a bit of small talk. I wanted to share the drama of my Canadian passport renewal experience, but he wasn't interested. So I just sat in the back quietly and monitored our progress on the phone. And it worked out that we got to the Canadian High Commission. He knew where to go. He got me there on time. And I was like 15 minutes early for my appointment, something like that. And actually I met another Canadian there who was also getting his passport renewed. He had an 11:20 appointment. Mine was at 11:30. So it was like a 10-minute window for each appointment. And this guy was much more, he was cool as a cucumber. And he says, oh yeah, 10 minutes, more than enough. As long as you've done everything right, boom, 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 you're out of there. So he was not stressed out at all, as opposed to me. Anyway, my train is here. And that's the inside of the new monorail. These are new trains, and much bigger, nicer than the older trains I used to ride on. There's the map. Okay, we are heading in the right direction. Chow Kit. And we're going to Titiwangsa. And we're...
Interchange station to MRT Ampang Line, MRT Sri Petaling Line, and MRT Putra Line.
Just listening to that announcement, I was wrong. It doesn't. I thought it linked up with the Kajang line. This one here, the green one, but it doesn't. It links up with the Putrajaya line, the yellow one. I knew that. I just misspoke. But I'm transferring to one of these, Ampang or Sri Petaling. That's what I'm doing. It's like even the world is overjoyed that my passport renewal drama is coming to a close. Look at that gorgeous day out there. Beautiful sunny day. Yeah, this interchange at Titiwangsa is quite impressive. I love to see how that happens, where three completely different public transportation lines all come together naturally at the same place. The monorail, the MRT, and an LRT line all coming together. Very cool. Yeah, the MRT, so there's an entrance to the MRT, Titiwangsa Station 17, but they all have the same name. So if you're going to Titiwangsa, a monorail station, the MRT station, and the LRT station, they're all called Titiwangsa. They don't give them different names. I guess that makes sense. But you can always tell the MRT apart, because the MRT is the newest line, much bigger and more modern than the older line. So all these white buildings over there, that pedestrian crossing bridge, all of that is part of the new MRT complex. I'm sure I've done this transfer in the past, but I don't really remember it. I'm not heading for the stairs just yet. I always like to slow down, take a look around, look at my surroundings. So this is the end of the line for the monorail, and I find that kind of fascinating because there's only one line into the station, right? It can only accommodate one train on one line, and yet there are two lines out there. So this part has a industrial strength mechanism to move the track from one side to the other. Yeah, well, it's one line but two different tracks. That's what I wanted to say. But I love to see this moving from side to side. That's very cool. So it's already on the right side, or the correct side, the left side. So there goes the monorail. Very brightly painted with all the advertisements for something. Mecha Mat. I don't even know what that is. The monorail that could. It seems so quaint compared to, oh, there it goes, it's moving over to the other side. I love that. All day long, back and forth, back and forth. Okay, let's go take care of our transfer. Just follow the signs. Not to get too deep into the weeds, but it can get a little bit complicated because the Ampang and Sri Petaling lines use the same tracks sometimes, and sometimes they don't. So yeah, actually, I think I have to exit from the monorail. Yeah, that's right. I'm pretty sure. Oh no, maybe not. Interchange to LRT and MRT. So maybe I don't have to exit. Or maybe I do. Oh no, here we go. Follow the signs. There we go. Oh yeah, I remember all this. Yeah. Just go down the tunnel. So, my passport story. I was at the giant building where the Canadian High Commission was located. I met this other Canadian renewing his passport. He looked like Mr. Cool. He wasn't panicked, or yeah, he was like a normal person, I guess. So we chatted as we were checking in, because it's pretty high security. And if I can pat myself on the back to a certain extent, I did anticipate this. And the fact is, I don't have any video of this because I knew the High Commission would be very security conscious. So I emptied my knapsack. I took out everything. All my cameras, all my camera mounts, all my microphones, all my gear. I basically went to the High Commission with my smartphone and my application form and my passport and my wallet and a comb. That's all I took with me, because I knew if I had anything else, it was going to cause trouble. So you got to check in at the door in the lobby. They check your passport against the appointment list. That's key. If you don't have an appointment, you're not getting in. So they have to look at the list. If you have an appointment, they give you a special card that allows you to go through the turnstile and activate the elevator. Both of us got in the elevator, and we were trying to push the button to go up to the 17th floor, and it wasn't responding. And it took a while. I finally realized, oh no, we have to scan our card to activate the elevator. Just kind of funny. Here is the map for this line, by the way. We're here, and I want to go to Bandaraya, platform 2. This way. So we managed to activate the elevator with our security card, went up to the 17th floor, and then I ran into something that I knew from the past, but I totally forgot about. And that is, you're not even allowed to bring in your smartphone. They're so security conscious, no phones allowed. So they take away your phones and they put them into a locked cabinet, and you get a key to your cabinet. But even though they're taking away your phone completely, they also ask you to either turn it off or put it on airplane mode. So you have to hold the phone out and show them, okay, it's on airplane mode, and now they take it away from you and lock it up. So very high levels of security. And this catches a lot of people by surprise, and me too, because I tend to keep all of the information I need on my phone. So I know I'm going to have to be speaking with not an immigration, but a government High Commission official. And she may be asking me all kinds of questions. Data, like addresses, phone numbers, reference information, dates, times, places. And I'm thinking, well, I have my phone. If she asks me, I can just look all this up. You can't. So you have to be aware of that when you're dealing with the woman or the man from the High Commission, you actually go into a little cubicle, like a security room. You get locked inside this room, and the official comes into the same room but from the other side, and you're separated by bulletproof glass with a little panel at the bottom you can pass your paper through. But once you're in that room, you don't have your phone anymore. And then if the woman asks you for something you don't know, you're like, well, that's on my phone. Like, oh, where were you last year? Where did you go? This, that, when did you get your passport? Well, that I could look up because I have my passport. But anyway, she could ask all kinds of questions, and I would normally refer to my phone, but it's like, I don't have my phone. So that's a real trick in the system. You got to make sure all of your information is accessible on paper or in your brain, because you're not going to have your phone anymore. And then what happened was exactly what I expected to happen from the beginning, because my original idea was to simply go to the High Commission, sit down with one of the officials, and have them walk me through the application form, because they can explain things to me that I don't understand. And now that I was in this prison cell, essentially, it's almost like you're going there to visit someone who's in prison, where you pick up a phone. You see that in movies all the time, and you talk over the little intercom phone. And so now that I was in this room, I handed the woman my application form, and she went over my form line by line, and then she asked me little questions about this and that, and we could have a conversation. And then she just got out her pen and just said, oh, you don't need that information. Oh, you don't have to fill out this part. Oh, this doesn't apply to you, etc., etc. Getting on the train. Just arriving at Bandaraya Station, which is where I wanted to go. And this is an interchange with the KTM. And all of these things actually mean something to me, because I'm pretty familiar with the system by now. Look at that day out there. The birds are singing, the sky is blue. At least I assume the birds are singing. Can't hear them over the traffic and the trains. And there goes the LRT. There go both of them. This is different. I don't know if I've ever noticed this before. It's like almost like a phone booth, but it's the elevator. So it's an elevator priority for them only. Women, pregnant women with babies, wheelchair, elderly people, that sort of thing. I was just thinking to myself, they need to add one more symbol. They need to add like a YouTube play button, because we YouTubers, I'm telling you, we classify as people who need help. We need all the help we can get. So we need a priority elevator for YouTubers as well. What do you think? And there's the bridge I want to cross right over there. Once I finish my passport story, I'll tell you where I'm going and why. If anybody knows me really, really well, you might be able to guess. If you remember all of my videos and my interests, things like that, you might be able to guess where I'm going. But yeah, look at the skyline here. The giants. The power. And out we go. Could be a YouTuber, live streamer, taking video with their phone over there. If this were Sumatra, I'd probably have seen 3 or 4 live streamers already. Very popular in Indonesia to be live streaming all the time. Everybody's doing it these days. Back to the passport story. So now that I was in the room with a woman from the Canadian High Commission, gave her my passport, gave her the form, and then as she was going over the form, I tossed out my little queries, and told her about some of my concerns about what I had filled out. I wanted to check with her that I had done the right thing. And that's when she just gave me all the answers so easily that I had had so much trouble finding on my own. For example, when it came to addresses, like I said, there's a part on the form where you put in your permanent address. No problem, I do that. But then later in the form it says, well, what about the last 2 years? If you were not at your permanent address, then please tell us your other addresses. And then I'm stuck because I've got like 10,000 other addresses. If I had to list every guest house, every hotel, every hostel that I've stayed in over the last few years. So I don't know what to do with that section. Particularly, I mean, people gave me advice. Everybody would say things like, oh, just write down the name of your current hotel and one of the hotels where you spent the most time. And well, that sounds reasonable. But then when you start to do that, you get to the end and then it says, well, how many months were you there? From what month to what month, right? So my current hotel, I'd been there 1 night, 2 nights maybe. So there was no way to fill the form out because it didn't accept days. It would only accept months. So you're stuck again. So I just left it blank. And then the woman looked at that, heard my question, and then she says, oh yeah, that's fine. So you've been traveling for the last 2 years? Yeah, oh okay, just leave that blank. It's like, just, you know, so easy. I was trying to find that information on the website on my own. Like, okay, if I've been traveling for 2 years and I don't have any other addresses, what do I do? But that is not, that information is nowhere to be found. You had to find that out from a human being. It's like, oh, thank goodness. And every single thing on the form was like that. And I would say, oh, what about this? I couldn't figure out how to do this. Oh, you don't need that part. Gone. This part, you don't need it. Gone. It's like, oh, so easy. Crossing over the bridge. We're going over a major road system and the MRT system or the LRT system over there and the KTM train tracks over there. I'd like to point these things out because I always think in terms of being a pedestrian or a cyclist. And as a cyclist in Kuala Lumpur, this is what you run into. You'll be over there on the left side. You want to go over onto the right side, but you're looking at 2 train tracks and 6 lanes of fast-moving traffic. And there's no way to get across. So yeah. But when you live here for a while, you figure these things out. Even when I was riding a bike, I would use these bridges, but then you have to pick up your bike and carry the bike up and down these stairs. But you get a bit sweaty. You get a workout, and it eventually gets you across. But you'd have to carry your bike up these stairs, down the next stairs, etc. Yeah, these are the KTM train tracks. So these are the trains here that go to Batu Caves. A couple of days ago, when I took the train from Seremban to KL, it was on this train track is what I took, because I was taking a KTM train, not an LRT train or an MRT train. But there were a lot of other wrinkles as I was at the High Commission. So, for example, I explained to the woman a couple of my experiences. I told her that I really tried hard to figure out what to do, but on your website, the Canadian government website, nowhere does it tell you what to do if your passport is full. I couldn't get specific information about that. And I mentioned that to her. So that got her thinking about my situation. Says, oh, okay, so you're renewing your passport because it's full. And I said, yes. And she thought about that for a while. So, oh, that's fine. You do what it is you're doing. But then at the end, she said, you know what? It's probably best if you write out a note explaining that, like a handwritten note that I will include in your application package. Because this whole package is not being approved by her. She's just processing it. And then they send it to Canada, and then it's in Canada they make a decision. So she was trying to help me complete the form fully. And she says, yeah, because you're renewing your passport 5 years early, that might set off alarm bells, because normally they don't allow that. You have to wait until there's like 1 year left in your passport, then they will allow you to renew it. And if you still have 5 years left, well, the rule is no, you can't get a new you can't renew your passport if there's still 5 years of validity. But of course, if your passport is full, well, that's an exception. But again, that information is nowhere on the website. And then she says, well, just to make sure that this goes smoothly, she gave me a piece of paper and a pen, like a blank sheet of paper, and said, just write out a personal letter about why you're renewing your passport or applying to renew it. And I wrote out in very formal language, my name is, I am a Canadian citizen, my passport number is this, it expires on this date, and so it still has 5 years validity left. However, all the pages are full. Therefore, I would like humbly to request of you, sir, kind madam, to renew my passport, one with fresh pages. I wrote a very long message. The woman at the High Commission was probably underneath the desk, like tapping her toes, going, we didn't ask for the latest Jane Austen novel here, dude. You don't have to write that much. But I like to be detailed. So, you write your name, you print your name at the bottom, and you sign it, and then you date it. And I never write. I'm a typist. So my writing is horrible and extremely slow. Ask me to write something down, takes me forever. So I wrote out this long letter, and then that was included with my application package. And we were done. Well, no, we weren't done, because I was expecting to get a receipt. I gave her my passport, the receipt for payment. Hello. And I gave her everything, and I got nothing back. And I explained to her, well, I asked her, like, what do I do now in Malaysia while I'm waiting? When I check into a hotel, they're going to ask to see my passport, and I don't have one. Or if I get stopped by the police at a checkpoint, passport, sir, what do I do? Like, don't I get some sort of official document that I can show officials? And then, to my surprise, this seemed to be a new question to her. She kind of went, huh, yeah, you're right. That is kind of a problem, isn't it? And I'm like, well, yeah, you're taking away the most important document I own. You can't live without a passport. Now I don't even have one. So what do I do? And I've done this in other countries, dealing with immigration departments and things, and they usually give you an official document that says, we have this man's passport, and these are all the details. But this wasn't automatic at the Canadian High Commission. And then she says, well, I can request a formal letter for you saying what's going on. And I was like, oh, that'd be amazing. And I thought I was just going to get it. She says, no, well, it will take a few days. And it turns out I got it on the same day. The next morning it showed up in my email inbox. So I now have an official letter from the Canadian High Commission that I can show to officials. And I still have photocopies of my old passport, things like that. And I've gotten letters like this in the past from the government. They always amuse me because they will not take any responsibility for you. Like when you read the language, it's so official, you can tell that 10,000 lawyers read the wording and vetted it to make sure that there's nothing in this document that leaves the Canadian government open to any kind of blame at all. So the letter says the absolute minimum. And if you converted it into normal language, like a human being speaking, it would probably sound like, okay, this guy, Doug Nienhuis, we don't know him. We don't know anything about him. We take no responsibility for him. We don't vouch for him. Nothing at all. We have no connection with him at all. No relationship. But he is a Canadian citizen, and he submitted his passport to us on this date. But anything he does, it's on him. He's responsible, not us. We are not taking any, that's what it would sound like. But basically, yeah, it's an official document from the government. They have to be very careful with their language, I guess. So after I got that all sorted, I wrote out my letter. They sent me their letter. And I think that was the end. The only other things going on, I don't know how long it's going to take. Online, I saw figures like 5 weeks, up to like 5 weeks, up to 2 months. But I think this woman said it could be 2 weeks, if you're lucky. So, fingers crossed, it doesn't take 5 weeks. We'll see. Could be as soon as 2 weeks that my passport is renewed and I can go back to the High Commission and get it. So that is the end of that story for now, I believe. I guess the very last thing I could say, I should say this, is that the people at the High Commission in Kuala Lumpur, amazing. Everybody. People in the lobby of that building, professional yet friendly, informative, helpful. The security guards up at the Canadian High Commission, the ones who take your phones away, put it on airplane mode, make sure you're not carrying GoPro cameras, things like that. Very professional, but more than that, they were kind. And I appreciate that so much. I love it when people are just, just be a human being. Give me a smile, a little bit of warmth. It makes me feel really good. And they were great. Security guards, I mean, they're Malaysians, of course, but they're employed by the Canadian High Commission. But they were amazing, really, really good guys. And then the woman that I dealt with, she's the only one that I met at the High Commission, also amazing. Friendly, helpful, not officious in any way, not hostile. She was just a really nice, gentle, warm person and was there to help me as a Canadian get this done. It was a wonderful experience. Website, I struggled. But when I got to the High Commission itself, really, really good. Yeah, amazing. I am at my secret destination. And my secret destination, surprisingly, maybe not so surprisingly, is the Tunku Abdul Rahman Memorial. So here's the sign, the Memorial Tunku Abdul Rahman Putra. And there's also a memorial to Tun Hussein On and Memorial Negarawan. But I think today I'm only going to the Abdul Rahman one. And if you don't know, I will tell you a little bit. I've been here twice before. This is my third visit that I can remember. And Tunku Abdul Rahman is considered the father of Malaysia. And he was instrumental in the independence movement, and he was the key figure driving the independence movement so that the Federation of Malaya, a British colony, achieved its independence tomorrow in 1957. So on August 31st, 1957, the Federation of Malaya became independent from the British. And it became its own completely free and independent country. And this man was, as I said, instrumental in that process, and he was Malaysia's first prime minister when it became an independent country. And tomorrow, August 31st, is Hari Merdeka, basically Malaysia's Independence Day. And there's a huge celebration happening all across the country. Here, the major one used to take place in Kuala Lumpur at Merdeka Square, but they've moved it. It now takes place at Putra. So a lot of people early tomorrow morning will be heading to Putrajaya, and then they will be, there to see the parade, basically a big parade celebrating Independence Day in Putrajaya. But I decided to celebrate it in my own way, go to a museum. As I said, I've been here before, and in fact, I shot a long and detailed video here before. So today, I'm not going to document this place the way I normally would. I'm just coming here to refresh my memory, just so that I can appreciate the celebration and Malaysia's Independence Day, just so that I have the background to understand what happened. And I thought the best way to do that, other than reading a Wikipedia page, is to come to the Tunku Abdul Rahman Memorial. And I'm just going up the steps and up the road here. And I believe this is where he lived. So I believe the British resident lived here originally, and then after independence, the first Malaysian Prime Minister, Tunku, he lived here. That was his house, and the memorial building is connected to it. It's over here. And it's quite an extensive memorial. It's essentially a very large and very detailed museum, and details the life, history of the Tunku, and of course, the history of Malaysia itself. And one reason I'm doing this is that I have a particular interest in independence stories. I guess it goes all the way back to my university days, because in university, I think I'm going to sit down for just a minute. In university, I studied international development. And as part of that program, we studied a lot of developing countries in Africa, South America, in Asia. And this was all before the economies of Southeast Asia exploded. So it was a very different world decades ago when I went to university. And a lot of the countries in Asia, they were considered developing countries at the time. They were not the economic powerhouses that they are today. So I studied the independence movements all across Africa, South America, and Asia. And it made a big impression on me, because the independence movement of all of the European colonies shaped the world I was living in. So the world we live in today, you trace back so many things happening now. It goes all the way back to their history as colonies of European powers, and then achieving independence. So if you understand that process, you understand these countries a lot better. And over the years, I've developed a certain number of themes that are part of the independence movements. So for example, there's the theme of World War II, because World War II was the catalyst for all the independence movements. Because before World War II, most of the world was divided up into colonies of Britain, France, the various European powers. But then, because of World War II, they all lost their grip on these places. So their presence in those countries was weakened because they were busy fighting a war in Europe. And of course, they were fighting the Japanese. The Japanese were occupying all these countries in Asia that were European colonies. So the European powers were kicked out because they had to fight on the home front. They lost a lot of economic power, they lost a lot of military power, and then the Japanese were there. Basically, they took over. And then when World War II ended with the defeat of the Japanese and the Germans, well, the European powers tried to move back in. They tried to get their colonies back. But of course, the local people, took advantage of this power vacuum, and that's when all the independence movements kicked in. And basically, the entire developing world became independent at that time, and Malaysia was one of those countries because, well, it wasn't Malaysia back then. You get tripped up by the names all the time. It was the Federation of Malaya back then, the British possession, and then in 1957, August 31st, tomorrow, then it became the Independent Federation of Malaya. But even in 1957, it wasn't Malaysia yet. So Malaysia has a little bit of a complicated history. In fact, they have two Independence Days. August 31st, tomorrow, is Hari Merdeka, Independence Day. But then on September 16th, they celebrate again, and that's Malaysia Day. Because in 1963, September 16th, that's when Malaysia as we know it today was formed. Because you had the Federation of Malaya, and then they were joined by Singapore, Sabah, and Sarawak. So you had the Federation of Malaya plus Singapore, plus Sabah, plus Sarawak, and those together became the modern country of Malaysia. And that is Malaysia Day, September 16th. So they celebrate two Independence Days. Very lucky people. But of course, in 1965, Singapore was kicked out and became a separate country, a city-state on its own. That was in 1965. So then the final form of modern Malaysia, as we know it today, really didn't come into focus until 1965. And that's when we have Malaysia as it exists today. So there's kind of like three dates. You've got August 31st, 1957, then you've got September 16th, 1963, and then a date in 1965 when Singapore was kicked out, before you finally get to modern day Malaysia. But tomorrow, Independence Day really is the big one. They just kind of celebrate all of it all at one time. And August 31st is Independence Day, Hari Merdeka. So what I was saying is that after World War II, again, 1957 is when the Federation of Malaya achieved its independence. But getting that independence was a long process, starting after World War II, when the war ended, all the way up to 1957. And Malaysia had a peaceful independence movement for the most part. And that's another theme of independence movements around the world. I talked about how it all happened after World War II. But you also have this idea that the colonial powers created the seeds of their own destruction. Because when all these countries were colonies, they took the best and the brightest of that population, and a lot of them were given scholarships to study at universities in London and Paris, places like that. And so what happens is you get all these people from Malaya studying abroad in Europe. They're all from Malaya, and they all get together at university and they form these clubs and these movements, and those are quite often the beginning of the independence movement. So in fact, you get Britain, they take all of these intelligent young people from Malaya, take them to university in London, and that group of educated people, they eventually start the independence movement, and they are actually the future leaders of the independent country later on. So in fact, all these colonial powers, they educated the people who ended up kicking them out and forming a new government, an independent government. So they kind of sowed the seeds of their own destruction that way. And Tunku was one of those, where he was educated in Malaya, but he was also educated abroad. And that's when the whole independence movement started. He networked with all these other people from Malaya, and then they formed society, like independence clubs and movements, and the seeds of independence were born back then. Haven't gone into the memorial just yet. GoPro battery died. And a little technology note. Yesterday or the day before, I went out shopping because all my GoPro batteries are swelling up and basically I can't use them anymore. And I bought a couple of like third-party batteries from a company called Veloso. And they're supposed to be the equivalent of the GoPro Enduro batteries. They have the white pattern on it, same as Enduro. So they're supposed to be like high-powered, longer-lasting, and they're about half the price of official GoPro batteries, but I thought I'd give them a try. My sense is they don't last nearly as long as the GoPro batteries, but at the same time, since the GoPro batteries swell up and you have to replace them constantly. It's just a giant money churn, and I'm tired of paying so much money for GoPro batteries. So, Veloso batteries. The other theme that I was thinking about when it comes to independence movements is around the world, there were two basic patterns. There was like a peaceful independence movement and then a violent one where there's like a big war. The French had a lot of wars with their former colonies, long, bloody wars. Luckily, when it comes to Malaya and then Malaysia, it was more or less a peaceful transition, with one caveat which gets a little bit confusing. But essentially it was a long, polite, non-violent process of meetings and conferences and treaties and agreements, lots of officials getting together and shaping out what this transfer of power was going to be like, where Malaya went from being a colony of Britain to being a free country. And it was done peacefully. And I really like that idea. I think I can relate to Malaysia, partially because Canada is very similar to that. Canada makes me laugh, actually, because we are so laid back when it comes to these things. People around the world get so excited about their independence wars and how they defeated their oppressors and fought against them and won, and they have all these heroic events in their past. And in Canada, we don't really have any of that. My sense is that we sat down with the British and we had a cup of tea and we had a nice little chat. And by the end of it, we're like, oh yeah, let's make Canada independent. But in fact, Canada didn't really become independent, I don't think, until 1982, like fully independent country. It's really quite, I think most Canadians don't even know that. I pulled together a couple of notes just so I have it clear in my head. So I think most people would say, most Canadians would say that Canada became independent in 1867. That's our independence year. But in fact, it isn't really, because we became a dominion. They just sort of changed the name of what we were called. We were now a dominion of the British Empire, meaning we governed ourselves domestically, but we had no control over our foreign policy. We were still part of Britain as far as everything important was concerned. And then in 1931, I didn't even know this, there was something called the Statute of Westminster. And at that time, 1931, Canada got control over its own laws and foreign policy. But even then, we couldn't change our constitution. Like the Americans, their independence entirely based on their constitution, their Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. They're very, very proud of that. Canada, for decades and decades and decades, even after we kind of became independent, we still had no control over our own constitution. The British controlled our constitution. And finally, I remember this, I was young at the time, I remember this happening. In 1982, there was the Constitution Act, and Canada finally had control, full sovereignty. So in fact, Canada has not even been a fully sovereign country until 1982, when we finally had control over domestic affairs, foreign policy, and our Constitution. Up until 1982, we didn't. And as my feeling is, we weren't even bothered by that. Like if someone said to me in 1975, you know, you're still controlled by the UK, you're still part of the British Empire, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Does that affect me? No, I still have to go to high school, and I got to do this, and I got to cut the grass. I mean, I don't care. So I don't think Canadians were that bothered by it, but eventually we did get control of our constitution as well. And then even today, we're still part of the Commonwealth, just as Malaysia is. So we have a king, King Charles III. He is also the King of Canada. The monarchy is our monarchy as well. And I think most Canadians, we're cool with that. We're like, yeah, sure, why not? It's fun to have a king, and we don't get uptight about these things. And I think Malaysians are a little bit easygoing in the same way, and their independence was negotiated over a cup of tea with the British. Not to say that they didn't have tough negotiators and push for their rights. And it wasn't I'm not saying it wasn't a struggle, but at the same time, it wasn't a war for independence, which I kind of like. The one caveat that I mentioned, and this often gets ignored, it kind of gets pushed aside, is that there was also the emergency. So there was fighting associated with the emergency, which was a communist insurgency against the British rulers of Malaya. And the British and with Malay forces were fighting an actual war against a communist insurgency. And the communists saw themselves as an independence movement fighting for their independence against Britain. So it was almost like there were two independence struggles going on at the same time. There was a communist insurgency fighting with weapons and bombs and killing people. And then there were the calm, peaceful negotiations over tea. And in the end, the emergency is sort of ignored as an independence movement because they weren't successful. They were defeated, and Malaysia became independent through the negotiating process. They were the ones who won in the end. So that story is Malaysia's independence story, as far as I understand things. So that is the story as I know it, and now I'm going to walk through the Tunku Abdul Rahman Memorial. And there's a lot of information here about the actual ceremony. I mean, the important part, to be honest, was all the negotiating, all of the conferences and the meetings going on for years, going on for decades. That was the important part of achieving independence. But of course, all of the attention gets put on Independence Day, the ceremony. And even the ceremony is a little bit complicated. I say it was complicated because, in fact, just as there are two Independence Days, there were two ceremonies. One took place at midnight. That was the one that took place at Merdeka Square. There was a dramatic ceremony. I believe they turned off all the lights for 1 minute. So at basically, like today, August 30th, was the last day of the British colony. And then August 31st, tomorrow, was their first day as an independent country. So at like midnight today, like August 30th at midnight, lots of people gathered at the Merdeka Square. And I believe right at midnight, they turned off all the lights. So it was pitch black. And then at 12:01, or maybe they did at 11:59, turned out all the lights. So everyone's in the darkness. And then at the stroke of midnight, the lights came on and the Union Jack, the flag of the British Empire, was lowered, and the brand new flag of the independent country of Malaya, the Federation of Malaya, was raised on a flagpole at Merdeka Square. So that took place at midnight. That was one ceremony. That was the official minute that Malaysia became an independent country. But the declaration of independence didn't happen until 10 a.m., and that took place at Merdeka Stadium. So at Merdeka Stadium, Tunku Abdul Rahman gave a speech. The Declaration of Independence was read. There were 20,000 people there, dignitaries and leaders from all over the world. And that's when Tunku made his famous speech, and he shouted Merdeka 7 times. And that was a second ceremony. So you see what I mean? People often get confused. They talk about how they get mixed up when they talk about the ceremony, because there were in fact two of them. There was the official minute at midnight when the flag was raised at Merdeka Square, and then at 10 a.m. the same day, they had the much bigger, more official ceremony at Merdeka Stadium. So I'm not a historian or a student of politics in any way. I barely pay attention to the news when it comes to politics, but I do find this place fascinating. It's one of my favorite places in Malaysia and in Kuala Lumpur, this collection of memorials. It's such a beautiful place. High up on a hill, you get a beautiful view of some hilly areas here, and then you can climb up higher and see a lot of the city. And then you've got the memorial building over here. And then this is the residence of the Prime Minister. And then here they have the actual Proclamation of Independence is on display here, and you can read it for yourself. So I want to go into the main entrance. I came at the building this time from an unusual point of view, but I think I have to go all the way down there, and that would be the main entrance down there at the bottom, and then you sort of climb your way upwards. So that is what I'm going to do now. As I said, I've been here before, and I shot quite a detailed video containing all of the information about these cars and all the displays on the inside. So I'm not going to do all that today, but yeah, just record a little bit on video. You can get a sense of what this place is like. And then, yeah, love these cars. They're absolutely gorgeous. The luxury of cars back in those days. Like just the luxury of how big they could be with the big tail wings and the lights. They look almost like airplanes that could take off. And this is the official entrance way down on the main floor. This is what the entrance looks like. And you sign in over here. And then this is the beginning of the memorial right here. One thing I really like about Malaysia's story is that the father of the country, Tunku, is called the Tunku. And that feels like a little bit of whimsy that their national hero who achieved independence and was the first prime minister has kind of a nickname in a way. People are quite fond of him, and he's known as the Tunku. So like you see it written out here. The Tunku was vocal in his voice and demanding independence. I just like that. A very friendly, informal touch. A little, as I said, a little piece of whimsy in Malaysian history. And I'm not even going to stop to read everything because I've already read everything here, probably twice. And there's a good picture of the man himself. I said I wasn't going to read everything, but I can't help it, and I'm busy reading through all of this again. And I noticed right away there's one section here that is echoing what I was talking about. And this section refers to, like right at the very top, it says, the British loss to the Japanese in the Second World War proved that Western powers could be defeated. And that's, yeah, a combination of World War II and the Japanese takeover of much of Asia. And I read a lot of these boards as well. And the main takeaway for me from these boards is a sense of just how complicated this process was. I mean, for a country to celebrate its independence, it kind of needs a simple, straightforward story. And yet, when you really dive into the details, it was far from simple. There were so many stages, so many different political organizations, everything from UMNO, formed on May 11th, 1946. And then again, this whole section here is talking about how the British returned to the country in 1945 after World War II, and they just basically wanted to take over again and just pick up where they left off. And they created what they called the Malayan Union with a new constitution, but the local people, the Malay rulers, hated that idea and fought against it, and that was removed. And there was another agreement in 1948, and another one, and then this organization merged with that organization, and then a whole bunch of them came together and formed a new organization. And of course, in Malaysia, you're talking about the three major groups, the Malays, the Chinese, and the Indian. And of course, they all had voices in the government. So now you've got the Malayan Chinese Association, and they had their own interests and negotiations and their own political parties. And so it was a very long, complicated, multi-stage process that finally led to 1957 and Independence Day. It's not as simple as you might want it to be, but yeah, it's just normal life. This is how things work. And if you want to get all of your dates straight, you also have to remember this date, February 20th, 1956, because that was the beginning of the process, really, because on February 20th, that's when like the delegation that went to London to negotiate for independence, and they succeeded, and then they came back to Malaya, and then they announced the date. Up until that point, nobody knew when it was going to happen, but then they came back and said Malaya would achieve its independence on 31st of August, 1957. So on February 20th, there was a big celebration and formal announcement of that. So all these pictures here were taken on February 20th. I think this happened in Malacca, where they announced the official date of independence. And these are all pictures of that ceremony and that celebration. And then, so that's a very important date in Malaysia as well, February 20th, 1956. Yeah, here they call it the reception for the Merdeka team at the Padang, Banda Hilir, Malacca. And I think Padang means a field. So it was like a big open field right here where they had, I think back in there, they said there were 100,000 people in attendance. I don't know if there were really that many, but there was a big motorcade with motorcycle escorts and then a big ceremony, big celebration. So yeah, that's the date you really have to start, February 20th, 56. And then there was even another ceremony because they had to sign the agreement, and that took place on August 5th, 1957. So it was a very simple ceremony, they say, and this photo was taken at that ceremony where the agreement was officially signed, August 5th, and then you move on towards the August 31st flag raising ceremony at Merdeka Square. And then, so these pictures were taken there, and this is like the moment of independence, sharp at 12 midnight before the dawn of August 31st. So the flag of the British Empire was lowered, and the new flag of independent Malaya, the Federation of Malaya, was raised. And that's the government building at Merdeka Square. There's the crowd waiting for midnight. And then after the midnight flag raising ceremony, then they had the huge event at the stadium. And here we are here, 20,000 people there, and the declaration, the proclamation of independence was read and witnessed by 20,000 people. And here is, I believe this is the Tunku shouting Merdeka 7 times. And of course, Merdeka, if I haven't said that already, means independence in Malay. And then the cabinet was formed, the new government. That first exhibit I went through was all about the official independence movement. And the next gallery is all about the Tunku himself, his life, education, youth. And again, I've talked about all of this in my other videos, so I'm not going to go over every display. But again, yeah, you just basically see his life on display, the sports teams, trophies that he won, and his hobbies. Apparently he was very into videography and photography. You see a lot of cameras and things like that. Swimming. Apparently he was a great swimmer, also loved to play golf, apparently. But yeah, you can go through this whole exhibit and see a lot of photographs of the man's life. And of course his wife and family, things like that, all that information is here. And if that weren't enough, there's another display. I think a lot of people come here not realizing that there's an entirely separate level way up here at the top. You go up these huge staircases, and then there's more displays up here. Yeah, it's worth going up just to see the staircase and the architecture of this building. And if I remember right, a lot of the display up here is about the Tunku's life after he was no longer in politics. He was still very active with newspapers and writing and things like that. So he was an active member of Malaysia's community even after he was no longer the Prime Minister. And this is the display up here, as I said, that talks about the rest of the Tunku's life. And quite an interesting display here about Tunku and the Star, his life as a journalist and a writer, the books and the columns and the articles that he wrote. I don't know if a man's life has ever been as well documented as this man's. There is so much dedicated to him. And in fact, I think I'm going to visit another building, because when I was here last time, I think it was closed, and that's the official residence. So I think I can exit here. Yeah, these doors are open. And then this building, I already pointed it out. This was the official residence for the British leader and for the Malaysian Prime Minister. But when I visited before, it was always closed. But I think I saw the door open, so I'm going to take a look inside. This was basically the official home. I'm inside the official residence now and walking through some of the rooms. This was a room where they would meet with foreign dignitaries. Yeah, beautiful room. They call it the Cairo room, according to the sign. Hardly need an explanation here. A dining room, official dining room, I assume, for foreign meeting dignitaries and guests having meals together. Simpler dining area and maybe kitchen cooking area. Oh. Nice in here. I like it. Feels like a very friendly place. Yeah. Not sure if these stairs are open. We'll find out. Yeah. Ah, cool. Yeah, you're just free to roam around inside the house. Beautiful handrail. Bedrooms. Wow, spacious. Very nice. You have a veranda going all the way outside this room. 1, 2, 3. 5 sets of doors leading out to the veranda. Similar single bedroom here. And I guess if you are the Tunku and his family, you need a lot of clothing. So you need a lot of wardrobes for all of your events you have to attend. I like this building. I like it a lot. It doesn't have an overwhelming, officious feeling to it. It feels like a comfortable place to live. Very large rooms. And even this room here, according to the label, is where like a visiting ambassador would stay. So this is a guest room. And I just like it that it's so unpretentious. You're a visiting ambassador and you sleep in a single bed like that, which is no different from any of the single beds I sleep on in all of my low budget hotel rooms. Right? Yeah, it's just a very, very simple style of living. I like that. And yet also quite spacious. If you have even kids, a lot of room here to run around. And I love all those doors leading out to the veranda that seems to go around the entire building. I assume this is a private mashallah, a prayer room. Very nice. And I think the doors out to the veranda are all closed, unlocked, but you can see it there. Very nice. I'm glad I got to see the inside, and I didn't get to see this last time I was here. Back down a different staircase. I just stumbled across this room on the outside, and this is the Tunku's private office. Yeah, I didn't see it from the inside. Love that desk. Love it. Look at that. The curve. Entirely wood. I do have plans to eventually visit this memorial. This is the National Memorial, and I didn't have enough time to go there in the past, and today as well I don't think I'll be going in there. I'll save that for another day. And this is the memorial Tun Hussein On, and I went inside there in the past, so you can see all of that in my previous video if you look for it on my channel. So I'm not going in there today. I really just wanted to revisit the Tunku's residence and memorial, just to get a refresher on the independence movement. But a fascinating thing about the design of this building is that you can go onto the roof. You can climb up these stairs here, and there's like a grassy platform built onto the roof of this building, and you get a nice view of Kuala Lumpur from up there. Perfect day to come out here. Beautiful day. So you can see we're climbing up a bit higher, and you get to see more and more of the skyline of Kuala Lumpur. And they have grassy areas here on the way up. Here's the very top. Petronas Towers on full display. Merdeka 118. I can't help but wonder what the Tunku would think to come up here today. Now that I think back, I can't quite remember how long he lived and how much he saw Malaysia develop and grow economically and as a nation. So if he came up here to this rooftop today and saw this massive display of skyscrapers, all shapes and sizes, what would he think of that? He would have some thoughts, I'm sure. And just down below me here, this is the residence, and that was the original building here. I think in 1994, the residence was turned into a memorial. So it was decided to preserve the house, and then later on they added the memorial, I think in 1994, and then they added this memorial and the others, and it just sort of grew into quite a fascinating place. Well worth visiting if you come to Malaysia and you don't know much about the place. A trip here would teach you a lot, and there's still a lot more I don't know because, as I said, I haven't been inside the Negarawan Memorial. So there's probably a lot more information there about the modern history of Malaysia. But beautiful from up here. A lot of flags on display, of course, for Independence Day tomorrow. I have to admit, I would sometimes get confused about the dates for Malaysian independence, because there's that flag raising ceremony at midnight, and then they always say, you know, midnight on August 31st. So for me, that means midnight on August 31st. So the first day of independence would be September 1st. But in fact, it's a weird thing in English where midnight is actually considered the beginning of the next day. So in fact, in my mind, if I'm speaking casually, the flag raising ceremony took place on August 30th, not the 31st. So midnight tonight is when the flag raising ceremony would have taken place. And then tomorrow, August 31st, that's when they had the big ceremony at 10 a.m. So August 31st is Independence Day, and the ceremony was at midnight on August 30th, technically. See what I mean? So I always got confused about that. But yeah. Heading back to the LRT station. I'm back at the bridge. Train just went by, but I just missed it. Just have to cross the highway system, get back into the LRT. When I was thinking about Malaysia's Independence Day, the Hari Merdeka celebrations tomorrow, I was thinking that for me, the idea of the independence starts with the Tunku. I like to associate historical events with people. It helps me to understand it better, to think of the people that were involved. And I think the independence movement started and ended with that man, the Tunku. And so I started my tour there. And right now I realized I'm just a short distance away from Merdeka Square. So as part of my Independence Day tour, I thought I'd walk the half a kilometer down to Merdeka Square, because that is the next most important point for Independence Day. In fact, this area near Merdeka Square and the government building, that was the focus point for independence celebrations for a long time. This is where you would come back in the older days to see the big parade until they moved it to Putrajaya. So it's fitting to come here today. And we're just about there at Merdeka Square, just on the outskirts here. The main government building, which you can see right there, is all being renovated. So the whole thing is covered up with tarps. It's all being renovated. And as we get past these couple of trees here, we should see the famous flagpole to mark where the independence celebrations took place at midnight tonight. I think at the time this flagpole was, I forget now, like the tallest in the world, tallest in Southeast Asia, something like that. But in any event, you can see it's very, very large, very tall. And to be honest, I don't know if any celebrations take place here at all. I mean, the main parade has been moved to Putrajaya, but you think something would still happen in Kuala Lumpur. And right now, yeah, we've got all these food trucks lined up. And I think a cold drink is in my future at one of these places for sure. Yeah, at the time, of course, it wasn't called Merdeka Square because Merdeka hadn't taken place yet. As far as I know, it was simply called Padang, meaning field. And this is the, what's that building? It's like a Selangor sports building of some kind, for cricket maybe, something like that. And then this field was used for, yeah, cricket and other sports. And it was simply called the field, Padang. So here we are. Merdeka Square, where it all took place. Flag of the Union Jack lowered and the flag of Malaysia raised. Yeah, something must be happening here tonight and tomorrow. Ceremonies. We got a stage set up over there. Most nights, especially on the weekend, lots of people here with their families when it's nice and cool, just enjoying the grass as a picnic area. And you can rent electric scooters and bikes and zip up and down this area. Yeah, let's go in search of a cold drink. My eye was attracted to this big display of a shake. So this is where I'm going to get some kind of a fruit shake.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm okay.
I'm okay.
So I'm looking for a fruit shake of some kind.
Shake, coconut shake, mango shake.
Could I get a mango?
Mango shake.
Yes, please. Yeah, just one for me.
Okay.
Look at that lineup of blenders. They are prepared. Check out all these fresh coconuts ready for tonight when all the crowds come out. So I am in heaven. Look at that mango shake with ice cream and even slices of fresh mango on the top. And you get a straw and a spoon. So there's the food truck behind me where I got my mango shake. I was being so greedy. I took 2 long pulls on it. I drank so fast, I froze my chest. You know that chest freeze you get? It's like, it's almost like a heart attack. It feels like a chest cramp. It's not like a head freeze, but a chest freeze. I gotta slow down, let my chest warm up a bit. Wow. So yeah, a lot going on here tonight, so I'm gonna have to come back to see some of the celebrations. Comfort food galore. We got waffles, breaded chicken, coconut shakes, big chicken burgers and beef burgers, more shakes, on and on and on. They know the way to a Malaysian's heart. There's lots of good food. Two more stops on this afternoon's Merdeka tour. One is right on the MRT line, because today there's actually a station called Merdeka Station, and it's right across the road from Merdeka Stadium, where the formal Proclamation of Independence was read and everything became celebrated and official. So I'm just going to head to the stadium itself. As far as I know, you can't go inside or anything. I don't even know if I can see it, but I can be at the stadium where all of that took place. Just got to hop into the MRT system.
Offering your seat to pregnant women, senior citizens, and disabled persons.
Arrived at Merdeka Station. It was actually only one stop away from Pasar Seni, but I'm sort of on my way to Bukit Bintang anyway, and this place is like right on the way to Bukit Bintang. So I thought I'd just pop outside. And again, I don't think I can see Merdeka Stadium when I get out onto the sidewalk, but at least I will be beside it. And again, I keep thinking of this from the point of view of the Tunku. Like even this MRT line would not have existed in Tunku's day. Can you imagine what he would think if he could see this MRT line? It's such an impressive thing. And of course they have it all decorated with the flags for Independence Day. In fact, I think there are 2 stadiums here. There's Stadium Negara, and might be able to see the outside of that one, but that's not the one that I'm thinking of. The historic one is on the other side of Stadium Negara, and that's, Stadium Merdeka. But as I said, it'll be enough just to stand on the sidewalk and be near it for my historic tour. And again, thinking of it from the point of view of the Tunku, can you imagine him coming out here, coming up this escalator and seeing what I'm about to see? My favorite building. And by favorite building, I mean Merdeka 118 right there. So I think this is the National Stadium right here, Stadium Negara. And then on the other side of this, on the other side of this complex is Merdeka Stadium over there. So we can't see it, but yeah, back in 1957, 10 a.m., if you were standing here, you would have heard the shouts of 20,000 people at least. And you would have heard the Tunku saying, Merdeka, 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 Merdeka. 7 times. And if this were a good reenactment, you would have heard 20,000 people shouting Merdeka back at me 7 times every time I said. It was like a call and response from the Tunku, Merdeka, and the crowd shouted back, Merdeka, and 7 times. So, celebrating Independence Day of Malaysia by walking near the Independence Stadium. But now I have one more thing to do, celebrating Merdeka in my own special way, and that is going to a Merdeka sale, because a lot of companies take advantage of the holiday to have discounts and special sales on electronics and things like that for Independence Day. And for that, I'm heading in this direction, which is Low Yat Plaza. I was there the other day and I noticed that the IT megastore, IT hypermart, whatever it's called, was having a sale on JBL Bluetooth speakers, which is something I've really come to depend on. A couple of years ago, in fact, I don't know how long ago anymore, a Planet Doug supporter gave me a Bluetooth speaker. And it was one of those things that I'd never thought about before. Didn't really know anything about them, never had one, never thought I needed one. But as soon as I had that speaker, I discovered how perfectly it fit into my life. And I depended on that speaker so much, and I used it all the time, constantly, and it finally wore out. It just doesn't work anymore. So when I saw the sale on JBL speakers, I thought I would go pick one up on their Merdeka sale. Yeah, they have 2 basic models that I'm interested in. One is the Clip, and wow, look at that. Some Merdeka kittens. Hello, kitty. Kitty, 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 kitty. Come here. Hey. Come here. Come here. Yeah, the one that I was given, and that doesn't work anymore, was a model called the Clip, the JBL Clip. And they still make it, so the latest version is the Clip 5, but there's a slightly smaller and lighter and cheaper one called the Go. So the JBL Go 4 is the latest in that series. So I'm either going to pick up a Clip 5 or a Go 4. I pretty much made up my mind I'm going to get the Go 4. I think the Clip 5 is bigger and heavier and sounds better, has more bass and is louder and has longer battery life, but it also weighs a lot more. And all of those things would be important if you're listening to music, but I'm not listening to music. I just listen to podcasts and YouTube videos, people speaking. And so I don't need the best kind of speaker for that. And to be honest, I don't really want to spend the money, and I don't want to carry around more electronics. I have enough. But I have a very compelling argument in favor of getting one, And I've discovered in my life that this is actually a very real argument, in that right now I listen to podcasts on my phone, and it's a habit of mine. I listen to podcasts in the shower, everywhere I go. So I'm always bringing my phone into the bathroom, into the shower, and I can tell it's just a matter of time before I destroy it. Like, you take a phone into a bathroom, you might as well start the countdown. You're going to drop it, you're going to get it soaking wet, you're going to lose it in the toilet, you're going to drop it, you're going to slip and fall, you're going to break it. It's just a matter of time. It's not a question of if you're going to break your phone, it's when. So my argument is by spending the money to buy a waterproof Bluetooth speaker, I bring that into the bathroom, and that means I won't break my expensive phone. So that's my logic for convincing myself to make yet another purchase of electronics that I have to carry around. But as I said, when I got that clip from a Planet Doug subscriber, man, I love that speaker. I just used it all the time. And I have another reason to get a speaker, and that's because the video editing laptop that I have, it has a tremendous amount of power for editing videos. But what I didn't realize is that a gaming laptop, it doesn't have good speakers. So they're very, very, very quiet speakers. So I have to use earbuds all the time. And I can't hear my laptop from even a few feet away. Like if I have a YouTube video playing, I'm editing a video, and I'm listening to a video clip, I can't even get up to plug in the kettle, because if I take 2 steps away from the laptop to plug in my kettle for a cup of coffee, I can't hear the laptop anymore. So I will just connect this Bluetooth speaker to my laptop, and then when I get up to go somewhere, go to the bathroom, go make a cup of coffee, I just carry the speaker with me. Or it's much louder than my laptop, so I'll just leave it there, and I'll play the audio out of the Bluetooth speaker instead of out of the laptop speakers. So I'm almost at Low Yat Plaza, so I'm talking myself into it so that I can crack open my wallet, which I really don't want to do. Here's a classic KL scene. I'm walking from the MRT station to a shopping mall, and yet there's no sidewalk of any kind. So this is where I have to walk along with this guy. It's just the way the city planners work on. Even today, I used to blame it on the history of KL, but this is a brand new construction right here. I was around when they were building this. So this is brand new road construction, and even with brand new road construction, it never occurred to them to put in any kind of a sidewalk. Right? This is it. There's no pedestrian path of any kind. You have no choice but to walk out there in the middle of traffic. That's just the way the city planners think here in KL. Not enough people walk here, so they don't need to put in sidewalks. So I'm inside the dreaded Low Yat Plaza, and I took the elevator up. There's really no easy way to do this. If you go up the escalators, you have to deal with all of the eager sales people trying to get your attention. But right there you can see the escalator. But if you go up the escalator many floors, you have to deal with so many hard pitches for salesmen. So I prefer to take the elevator, but the elevator takes forever, and it's jammed full of people carrying giant computers and all kinds of things. Anyway, here is the IT hypermarket. And as I said, they're having a big Merdeka promo up until September 1st. So I think I'm here to spend money, even though I don't want to. Spending money I don't have. I came in here the other day looking for GoPro batteries, and they don't even sell them. Crazy, yeah. And then while I was looking around, that's when I saw this display. Looking at the JBL sale that you have.
I see. You want to try them out as well? There's some demo at the back there.
Yeah, actually, well, why not? Yeah, I'm trying to decide between the Go 4 and the Clip 5. Because I think the Clip 5 is heavier.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier. So this one is the Clip 5 and Go 4, right?
Yep.
Go 4.
That's the most recent one, right?
Correct.
And that one's the...
Go 4. You can connect them to your Bluetooth on your phone as well. You can give it a try.
Yep.
And
Yeah, I'll call up some... yeah, I would normally use it not to listen to music, but just to like a podcast, like talking.
Podcast, yeah.
So the audio quality isn't that important,
I
but
mean, if they're good for music, they're definitely good for podcast. That's the thing. So
yeah.
you're losing most of the function. Where what's so special about this is that you can clip it on your bags or your stuff or your pockets and stuff.
For me, it's mainly the weight, because I'd be carrying it in a backpack all the time, and it's
This
a
one's
lot.
definitely lighter.
Yeah, it's lighter, smaller. Can I try that one? The sound?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Well, it's morning time. I'm gonna probably just make a kind of
He's riding his bicycle around Malaysia right now.
Oh, he is.
Traveling around Malaysia.
See.
We did it yesterday, guys. So we accomplished our mission on that.
And one more time back to there, and then that'll be it. Just to hear him speaking will be enough.
Yesterday, guys. So we accomplished our mission on actually doing the premier, what did you say, the premier marathon yesterday. So that was, the last one was the one that was late on getting that one out because I was still editing it. And I totally...
Okay. I'll just go look at the price and the colors and...
Okay, so pricing for the Go 4 will be 178. And then for, let's say, the Clip 5, it's going to be a little bit more expensive at 288.
Okay, 288.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then if you really do want to compare one thing, is the battery life. So
Yeah.
for the Clip 5, it's actually 12 hours
12
of
hours.
lifespan. Whereas for the Go 4, it's a little bit less, where it's 7 hours.
7 hours.
It depends on if you are really going to use it like a long while in one session, you know.
Yeah, I'd normally use it inside, so
Then it will be
I can
fast.
always just charge it up again. So I think the Go 4.
There's like more colors here.
Yeah.
Purple, blue, then white, red, camo.
Camo.
Yeah.
For some reason, what do I like? Either the purple or the red. I think I'll go for the red.
Go for the red?
If I could get one of the red ones.
Sure.
That's my Merdeka present for myself.
Yep.
So there it is, a Merdeka present for Planet Doug. And as I said, the idea is that it will save my phone. That's what I'm telling myself. Buy this so that it's a good idea so I won't break my phone. And one other difference is this one you can sit it up.
Yes, but that one you can't.
It falls over. Yeah. Okay, so it does have the equalizer. Okay, it has a... Might as well do it all right away. Get the latest version. Yeah, I don't know if this is an update of the app or an update of this, of the device itself.
For the software in the device.
In the device. All right. Very high tech.
Yeah.
You feel it right away. That's good. You can hear my voice clearly. Perfect. Even the dog. All right.
Even that's cute.
Yeah.
All right, sir.
That's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I have to pack it up.
Yeah. Okay. And the cord is still in there?
Yeah. Right here.
Right there. Cool. And I've got the receipt here.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you. You've been very helpful.
Thank you. All right. right, sir. Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too.
Safe travels around.
Yeah, thank you. So there we go. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. It's funny how objects that you buy, they look different once you have them in your hand. Like on this shelf, I was like, oh, it's too heavy. But as soon as I got it away from the display and we had it on the counter, then it was like, oh wow, it's actually pretty small. So I think it'll work out okay. Slow elevators here, very slow. There we go. G for 8. Thanks. So that's the way you celebrate Merdeka. You go to the Tunku Memorial, you visit Merdeka Square, you go near the Merdeka Stadium, and then you hit up a Merdeka electronics sale. So yeah, it was a pretty good price. If I had another reason to talk myself into picking one up, that's another reason. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with it right now. When I was listening to other people on their YouTube videos, their voices weren't really coming out that strongly. But once you went to Planet Doug and you're listening to my voice booming across, then that little red Go really sounded good. It worked out well. My voice sounded good, it carried well, so that's all I really need. Yeah, pretty pleased. As I often do, I'm celebrating my purchase with another purchase. I treat myself to a cold Coke after buying something like this. It's sort of like my celebration drink. They didn't have any Coke here, which is unusual. They only had Pepsi. Anyway, I got a cold Pepsi. And I get to admire my new JBL Go 4. I keep wanting to call it a clip because I'm so used to my old one. But it's not a clip, it is a Go. Ah, he retaped it. He put a piece of tape across here. That's where it opens. There we go. Look at that. Compared to my hand, very nice size. Power button. You could really feel it coming online. Should still be connected to my phone. That's nice. Good looking pooch, that one. Very fuzzy. Lots of golden fur, but I've never been able to make friends with it. My 360 camera, wallet, it's really vibrating. Smartphones. Wow. App.
Every time that I look in the mirror, oh, life is bigger. It's bigger than you are not me.
Luckily, the monorail goes right through the area where Low Yat Plaza is located. Direct line back to my hotel. Back in my new neighborhood, Chow Kit. As I said, it's not the easiest neighborhood to get in and out from, but it's a cool place. A lot going on here. I think I got back just in time. I can feel some rain starting. Power of touch and go once more gets me out. The funny thing is that the other day I spent kind of the entire day, or at least half of the entire day, trying to find a place to get passport photos taken. And I had it in my head I needed to go to specific places that were professional and knew what they were doing. And maybe that was a wise decision. But at the end of the day, when I came back, I noticed this place, like literally right around the corner from my hotel. Quick photo. And I'll bet you they can take passport photos right here. So I could have walked like 50 feet from my hotel and come here. That would have been what a normal person would have done, but chances are I would then go to the Canadian High Commission and they would look at the photos and say, the dimensions aren't right, or the positioning of the body of your face isn't right, the lighting isn't quite right, who knows. So whoops. Sorry. There I am in the mirror. This morning on my way out, I dropped by the front desk because I paid for 3 more nights and I needed to reset my card. Otherwise, of course, it wouldn't open the door. And while I was down at the front desk, I realized that there's 2 different men that I've been seeing there. And one of them is the unfriendly one, or he's probably friendly, but he doesn't show it on his face. He's the one who checked me in, and I was talking about how it felt like I was checking into a house of horror, and then he was probably the serial killer, the dungeon master. But then other times when I've gone by the front desk, there was another man there who actually had a friendly face and a smile, and he would call out to me, "Good morning, sir," things like that. And I thought, there's a good front desk clerk. Anyway, this morning when I went down to reset the card, it was the unfriendly one, the stone-faced guy. And but he reset my card. That was no problem. He just wasn't interested in any Planet Doug style chit-chat while he did it. And then while I was standing there, I noticed there's a big piece of paper. There's a piece of paper on the counter all about the tourism tax, just explaining to people, oh, by the way, we have this 10 ringgit per night tourism tax set by the government, blah, 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 blah. It's been there forever because it's all torn up and stained and things like that. And then down at the bottom of that piece of paper, someone, a guest, presumably had written in ink with a pen, wrote at the very bottom something like, "This hotel is full of cockroaches. Don't stay here. Go somewhere else." And you can tell by the stains and everything that line has been there for months, probably for a couple of years. Who knows? But it's just kind of funny that that piece of paper with a guest saying that the hotel is full of cockroaches and warning people away is still there. It never occurred to any of the employees that, maybe we should get rid of that piece of paper. But it's just still there. It's probably going to be there forever, which is kind of funny. But anyway, yeah, back in my comfortable room. The front desk clerks can be as much of a serial killer as they wish in how they look. Just as long as I get to stay in a comfortable room like this, I'm very happy. Settling back into my paradise room here. I've got my own mini kettle here. And when it comes to a boil, and then shuts off. And I kind of wanted to get it just as hot as possible, like it doesn't click anymore. So I have to hold the button down here and just give it a little bit of a boost to bring it back to an absolute full boil. I always want my water, my coffee water, to be as absolutely as hot as possible. So I give it a final boost. Bring it to a full boil. There we go. Straight from the full boil into my cup. That's how I like my hot drinks, as hot as possible. Yeah, funny thing is these third-party cheapo GoPro batteries that I bought, they actually come more nicely packaged than the GoPro batteries do. And each battery comes in its own little plastic box, a little plastic case. And the GoPro batteries that cost at least twice as much, they don't come in a little case. So it's kind of funny. Since today's small adventures were all about Malaysia's Independence Day, I made a snap decision, kind of an impulse thing, to head back to Independence Square, Merdeka Square, just to see what is going on there late at night, now that it's nighttime. It's almost 11 o'clock, and yeah, I just wanted to see what's happening. Because as I said, this is August 30th, so this is the night before independence was declared and achieved. And at midnight tonight is when Malaysia officially became independent. So what I'm going to do is head over to Merdeka Square, where it took place. That, as I talked about already, at midnight on August 30th, that's when the Union Jack was lowered and the new flag of the Federation of Malaya was raised. And maybe there's going to be fireworks, I don't really know. But I'm here in the monorail station, Chow Kit, and I'm just going to pop over to Merdeka Square and see the nightlife. I imagine it's a lot busier now that it's about 11 o'clock at night, maybe 11:30, 11:15 by the time I get there. And I hope I'm correct about this, but I think all the trains are running 24 hours a day for this weekend. Normally I probably wouldn't do something like this, because by the time you get there and you want to come back, all the public transportation will be shut down. But I think for tonight and tomorrow, the trains are running all night long. So I'll be able to take the Ampang line and the monorail back to my hotel afterwards. So that's very cool. I'm back in my old stomping grounds, Masjid Jamek Station. It's the closest one to Merdeka Square. You can see there's a lot more people around here. A lot of flags on the cars, honking. And to get to Merdeka Square, I just have to go through this area here and cross the river. Getting into the crowds, and I'm nowhere near the park yet. I don't know if this is common every year, but it looks like one of the hot new toys or accessories this year is the horn. These plastic horns here. I didn't even know how you used it. I hadn't seen anybody blowing, or I thought you pushed on it. But I guess you blow into it. The Klang River, of course, Merdeka 118, all lit up for the occasion. And there's Merdeka Square over there. What a crowd. Look at the variety of horns, different sizes. Yeah, I don't really know what's going on in the way of like fireworks, things like that. I'm assuming there's some kind of fireworks in the city that can be seen from this park, but I don't know that for sure. And if there are fireworks, I guess they would go off at midnight. That would be the key time, right? And I imagine if everybody is here essentially to hang out until the fireworks, then there's going to be a big crush on the trains right after that. So if you don't like crowds in the LRT and MRT, I guess you have a choice. You can leave right before the fireworks and get out before the crowd, or hang around for half an hour after the fireworks. Wow, what a difference from, yeah, actually this is exactly where I was today. That's where I got my mango shake, but there was no lineup during the day today. This whole street was completely empty. Not now. It was for this that all these food trucks were set up early, waiting for this crowd to show up. Yeah, not a huge fan of the horns, but I guess they give a festive atmosphere. Oh yeah, there's the stage at the far end. When I was in Port Dickson, I was talking about how they had the same toys that shoot up into the air and then come down like a helicopter. But the ones in Port Dickson didn't go up very high. But all the ones I see here go up 2-3 times higher. Yeah, look how high they go. Yeah, one way up in the air over there. Maybe they know how to shoot them here better, I don't know. I wasn't sure if you could even come out on the grass. They have the ribbons here. It's almost like it's a reserve, but yeah, all the smart people came here with chairs and blankets, like they're having a picnic, I guess. Oh yeah, even plastic sheets. But you can still walk your way through here, thread your way carefully. Yeah, it's kind of nice. kind of amazing that you can get this close to the main stage and there's still so much room.
16 September 1963.
I thought this area would be much more crowded than it is.
Peta dunia.
Sabah, Sarawak, Singapura, dan tanah Melayu bersatu menjadi Malaysia.
Di segenap tanah bertuah ini, kita mulakan langkah baru. Langkah yang diiringi derap kemajuan. Disulap usaha tanpa jenuh.
And Chairman Kitch deserve. And they've done it!
Bukan kerana kita takut, tapi kerana kasih yang menahan langkah. Kita menutup pintu rumah, tetapi hati kita tetap terang. Air mata orang lain, sedangkan tangannya sendiri menggigil kata kita.
Ya Allah. Tapi inilah janji kita. Janji yang lahir di tengah tangisan, tapi dibesarkan dengan harapan.
Selagi bumi ini bernama Malaysia,
Memperjuangkan kesejahteraan bangsa, mempertahankan negara dengan jiwa dan raga. Inilah janji kita. Anak Malaysia, anak Malaysia. Saya anak Malaysia.
Dan sekarang, biar semangat itu bersatu dalam suara, dalam nyanyian, dalam jiwa.
dan juga
Malaysia.
Baik, terima kasih.
Alhamdulillah. Dan juga salam kemerdekaan. Merdeka!
Dibawa juga jalur gebilang oleh pahlawan dan serikandi yang akan serahkan kepada Yang Berhormat Datuk Bandar Kuala Lumpur, dan selepas itu akan terus kita langsungkan untuk bersiap sedia bagi menaikkan jalur gebilang tepat jam 12:30 malam. Pentas utama bagi menyempurnakan sambutan Amal Merdeka at Kuala Lumpur 2025 pada malam penuh bersejarah ini.
Di merata dunia harus
Kini, majlis dengan segala hormatnya untuk menyambut Hari Kemerdekaan yang ke-68.
Thank goodness for smartphones is all I have to say. I've always often talked about how my GoPro has an evil side to it. It knows exactly the worst times to overheat and for the battery to die. And just as the fireworks display began, what everybody was here to see, the battery died. I guess I wasn't monitoring it or something, but anyway, luckily a smartphone captured a little bit of the fireworks display. It's only been a few minutes since the show ended and the fireworks ended. But you see the field is clearing out very, very quickly. I think I'm not going to even try to use the LRT and monorail. It's like 2 kilometers back to my hotel. So I think I'm just going to try walk back. It'll probably be faster walking, to be honest. But that was a really great way to end the day. I'm glad I made the effort to come back out here. I knew something special was going to be happening out here, but I honestly had no idea of the scale of it. And the stage show that they put on was really quite impressive. Just the timing of it. It was like a dramatic presentation. Of course, I couldn't understand anything, but you didn't really have to understand what they were saying. The drama was in the uniforms. Everybody got their moment in the sun. Nurses, doctors, engineers, police officers, everybody got up there in uniform, was dancing and singing and performing in little plays. And yeah, you just sort of saw the history of Malaysia on stage, and the timing of it was really interesting. They had everything so well choreographed and put together. I'm sure behind the scenes there were probably mistakes. People got things wrong, got on stage wrong, but out here in the audience, you never know. Everything looked great to me. And they timed it so that everything came to a conclusion right at midnight, exactly as they planned. And then you had the fireworks display right at midnight. Yeah, really well done. Very, very energetic too. You can feel how much the people here, there's like a genuine patriotism, like a genuine sense of being very proud of their country and very happy to be part of Malaysia. Yeah, there's just a joy in the air, which, yeah, it's interesting to experience that. We got the motorcycle club out here. And all the traffic on the main street, everybody's still honking their horn, celebrating Merdeka. Yeah, that's a very cool shot right there. The train going by, the traffic, and the giant Malaysian flag on the building over there, the banner flag. Just be thankful you're not down here in a car. That's actually not that bad. The traffic is flowing. Just a couple of road closures, but nothing too major. The horns coming from everywhere. And I just realized this road goes all the way back to my hotel in Chow Kit, and I'm going right by the Swing and Pillows, and that's where I was staying last time. So this was my hotel the last time I was in KL. If I was staying there again, I'd already be home. But I've got a little bit of a walk ahead of me. I don't know if this is a traditional part of Independence Day celebrations, the annual motorcycle rally maybe. It's hard to believe that it's a coincidence that so many motorcycles are on the same street at the same time. I don't know if it could just be normal traffic. Feels like it's a pre-planned event or something. Quite far away now from Merdeka Square, and look at all the motorcycles still coming down this road. I know that there are certain roads in this area that are just really popular with motorcycles. When I was staying at the Swing and Pillows Hotel, you could hear them on some nights just all night long. 3, 4 in the morning, still roaring up and down this road. So maybe it's just a well-known route. Motorcycle clubs enthusiasts follow. Yeah, it looks like the motorcycles are following a circle, like some kind of a loop, going through this intersection and then going around and around. Oh, okay. I know where I am now. That Pak Punjab restaurant right across the road. I had lunch there the other day. We're getting very close to my hotel. It's just up the road here. As we're back in the Chow Kit area. Yeah, the monorail track is right up there above me. Just have to follow this to the Chow Kit station and I'm home again. Yeah, I don't know what time it is now. It is 1 a.m. So if this were the real Merdeka, Malaysia would be, well, the Federation of Malaya would be 1 hour old.